Sanjay Shrivastava, and thank you once again for joining us on this webinar. So, a little bit about Vocareum. So, I think for those of you who are not familiar with Vocareum, we'll go through about 5 to 10 minutes of introduction. Then we'll switch to the topic at hand, which is obviously talking about GenAI strategies for the campus. In the meantime, we have few of us on the webinar. So if you use the Q&A to ask questions, hopefully you'll get response right away. Otherwise, I'm hoping to be done in about 35 to 40 minutes. And at that point, hopefully we can start, open it up for questions. So for those of you who don't know, Vocareum, we launched it in 2014. So it's been a little over 10 years. And we have been providing virtual labs. And virtual labs for us means basically a space accessible via browser where the learners can go and do some hands-on skills, work on their hands-on skills. So these space typically meant the teacher can configure compute, they can provide data, and it can be used to, for example, doing assignments and in class activity and also the different assessment strategies. Now, roll the clock forward a decade. We have about 4 million learners on our platform. We are there on about 7,000 universities, and we have 10 major edtech partners. And what we mean by edtech partners is that if you are, for example, going to maybe Udacity or Udemy, often, simply learn edX, Coursera, and if you're learning maybe cloud computing or data science, often, especially for cloud computing, if you have access to any hands-on space, it's often served by Vocareum. This is, we are very proud of all the customers, all the universities worldwide. As I said, 7,000 institutions that use us. One thing which we realized very early on that labs do not exist in isolation. They need to be, exist in the overall learning context of the learner. So we were really focused on it was focused from the day one to make sure that we were nicely integrated into overall learning environment. So, and you'll see from a demo later on, but you can access through Canvas or Blackboard or, and all sorts of different platforms. A lot of the integrations happen through LTI, but if the platform does not support LTI, then they can use our REST API to do the integration. While we have a lot of partnership, one we are especially proud of is one with AWS Academy. When I mentioned 4 million learners, 2 million actually come just from one program where AWS Education Group delivers this curriculum and our labs are a part of it, and they are distributed to more than 6,000 higher ed institutions. And what is exciting about it is free, as well as when the learner is going through this curriculum, they're not only getting college credit, but they also, getting ready for the AWS certification. So hopefully it's making a meaningful difference in their opportunity to get employment. Another partnership that we are excited about is more recent one. There's the NSF-led pilot called NAIR, which is National AI Research Resource Pilot, where NSF invited a bunch of private providers to contribute resources for general AI literacy for both for education and research. And we are one of the few providers that really focus on the education aspect of this program. So let's just talk about for the topic why we are here is campus AI use cases. So we have been working with AI solutions for about a year and a half. And here is some of the things that we are hearing from our customers. As you know, the GenAI, initially the concern was all about plagiarism, but it has changed to, I need students to acquire skills to use AI tools for their work. So one of the ways everyone is like trying to figure out is how do I provide a safe sandbox for my learners? And the safe could be from a budgeting perspective, or it could mean from things like you want to make sure the PII does not leak. So that's one of the big use cases that we are hearing. The other one is you want to often teach students, especially in the computer science or related field, then you want to be able to teach them the skills to use API keys to deliver applications. And once again, the challenge is how do you deliver it without asking them to enter their credit card? And often because the free services don't even provide API access, but also you want to give students access to lots of different foundational models. This was an interesting use case that we are working on. One of our partners said that they have a pitch competition on their campus, but they could use to increase engagement. The students are often entering their ideas, but not seeing it through. So we are hoping that we can we can use Gen AI to make it a little more engaging for the students to work from all the way from the idea to the pitch deck. This was another use case. We're excited about it. There's a placement test. Often the students need to be placed in a, let's say, there's a math placement test, and they need to prepare for it. Often, and this is another use case. And we were asked to see if Gen AI can help, and we'll actually do a demo. Grading efficiency, there's always a challenge. Often this becomes this is a huge sort of work, and everyone is focused on how we can use Gen AI to improve grading efficiency. And sometimes it's grading, and sometimes it's just feedback. But can we quickly, when the student is working in the middle of the night, can we quickly use Gen AI to provide them some feedback? This was another interesting use case we heard that someone said, we are, this is from a law school where they are saying that when they prepare the final exam, one of the things they're concerned about is making sure that whatever material in the final exam was it covered during the class. This was another use case which we had not at least I had not anticipated, that often the teachers are saying that they expect the students to be at a certain skill level in certain fields, but they are not teaching it in the class. So one of the deployment has been, can we use Gen AI to help them maybe go self-study, so create assessment tests and tutor and all that. We'll talk about it, just to focus on a prereqs that are needed for the class. And often it could be prereq even at the lecture level. You want the students to come prepared for what they need to know. So let's talk about our solutions. So our solutions, so we are splitting into two. One we're calling what campus product, and then classroom products. So campus products are, this is what we can be deployed in outside the classroom, because often Gen AI is being deployed for, let's say, improving operational efficiency. So there are two products. One is Gen AI keys. So this is where this is heart of our platform, where we generate keys, where your admin can generate keys and encapsulate your campus policies. So for example, it can say things like, what models to use, what budgets are available, and what other governance and oversight tools that you want to be associated with the GenAI access. And then once you have the keys, you want to provide GenAI Sandbox. And when we say Sandbox, the Sandbox should be maybe just able to access Assistant or being able to build apps. And it needs to also be accessible for people who want to write code, but also people who are not familiar with coding. So then you need a no code sandbox. So first of all, as I said, like we provide this ability to generate keys where we support multiple models. So today we are supporting OpenAI, Azure OpenAI, Cloud, Bedrock. Actually, Gemini is not listed here. We also support Google Gemini and the custom Llama 3. So this last one is interesting because sometimes our customers they're running Llama 3 in their own data centers. So they want the learners to have that option because often it can be less expensive. And the way we do it, what is encoded in our infrastructure is the LLM gateway. So for LLM routing and governance. So basically, before it hits the LLM, these requests hit our gateway, where we can either route it to the right model, or apply some governance principle. For example, the big one is which we're implementing on is that making sure that the PII does not does not leak if that's what you want. We already talked about budgets, and then you can assign the keys to either a user or you can assign it at the class level, and you can get detailed analytics. And as I was saying, we are what's coming soon is privacy directives, especially around PII. Hopefully it become a little bit easier when I actually do a demo to understand. Once again, Sandbox, when we say Sandbox, as I mentioned earlier on, it means that you can access, once an admin has given you a key, or a teacher has given you a key via course access, then you can access the assistant, you can build assistants, you can share the assistant, and you can even code. So the app builder itself, this is the no-code app builder that I was mentioning. You can upload files, you can set system prompts, and once again, everything that we do, we think a lot about the money part. So you can set policies around who's is going to pay for the LLM access. Are you paying for it when you're sharing it, or you want the learner to bring the user to bring their own keys? And once again, there's a sharing component to it. So let's talk about the demo. I will show you, okay, this is, so in this browser, I'm logged in as an admin. So Vocareum has roles like admin, users, students, and teachers, which are built in, and then you can create custom roles. Now, this is an admin dashboard. The first thing what you can do is you can see here is the analytics that in this particular organization, $450 were budgeted, but only $9.81 were used, and 759 user keys were dispensed. So, and their dashboard, you can go, you can start with, you can see which different models were used, which different courses they're using, and you can even go down to the user. But then let's go to the GenAI services. So one thing which you do is you set a key, and what this means, you're telling Vocarium which LLM to use. And so, for example, if I were to pick OpenAI, and if I were to add a key, I can name it, I can provide the credentials, and I can set a budget. And later on, I'll show how to use it. For some cases, let's say like Azure, if you have a negotiated rate with the vendor, you can even enter the rate. Otherwise, we will just use the default rate when we are computing the budget. And as I was mentioning, if you are bringing a custom, this is an important one. So if you're bringing a custom model, you can specify the endpoint, give us the key, and also tell us how do you want it to be budgeted. So you can specify different pricing, and then we'll use this pricing for computing the expense. So sometimes if you want to, and we'll talk about it, if you want to give access to, let's say, a commercial model and your own model, then and you can set a budget. So if your models are cheaper than let's say a Llama 3, which is running in your own data center, then your users can choose that maybe for some queries they can use, try to use the local model first. So and then once you are ready with the keys, you can actually assign it to a user. So let's say now this user, my Sanjay plus S1 here, already has been given some keys, and there were actually two. We are transitioning from this keys where you have to specify who was the provider, is OpenAI, to a more a generic key where you can actually bring the same key can encapsulate multiple models. And the way you do it, you can specify the key. Then you can specify a policy, and what policy encapsulate today, what models you're allowed to run. So for example, multi-key policy here, and I will show you what all models are a part of it, where once the key is accessible, then the user can access all the models. And as I was mentioning earlier on, the policy you'll be able to very soon start adding more restrictions, like what's the throttling rate. So maybe the budget is set, but you don't want the one user to access it too fast, or you want to say that if you use this key, then the LLM gateway should make sure that there no using an AI firewall that no personal information leaks through. Then you can enter a expiration date, and then you can enter a budget. And just I'll go ahead and let me just, okay, I'm not provided the key here. So let me just cancel because I don't have a key ready here. And then what you can also do is, like, you can, as I said, you can assign a key at the user level, but you can also assign a key at the course level. So here is one of my demo courses, and there is a resource. So as an admin, you can say this key has what we have already assigned is multi-key policy, and I'll show you later what's included here. And there's a $30 budget. So you can see there are other resources you can provide to the course, but obviously for today, we'll just focus on GenAI. So now, once you have the key, what can you do with it? So let's go to a different login here. I'm logged in as the user Sanjay plus S1 here. Now I come here and I can see, okay, so I have been assigned all these keys. So first thing which I can do with the key, actually, I can copy this key, and I don't have to use it on the Vocareum platform. I can take this key and use it anywhere where the vendor lets me configure the endpoints. And the endpoint in this case has to be openai.vocareum.com or cloud.vocareum.com or something like that. I've forgotten all the endpoints. But first of all, you can just copy this key and just use it there. And most of the services like Python packages or LangChain, often they let you bring in your own key and your own endpoint. Then the other thing which you can do is access the apps. So for example, the apps here, first thing you can do is assistant. So these are assistants. You can, there's a chat GPT assistant, and this is using the old style key. So that's why you have to first pick a chat GPT key here, and then you can pick one of the models and you can just query the assistant. Or if someone has shared a model with you, for example, let's just go to the builder here. This is where you can build models. So the UC Bearcat AI, we basically took some University of Cincinnati public information, and we uploaded it here. So this is, I'm not going to do it live because it'll take at least quite a bit of time, maybe up to 10 minutes to build it. So, but we have gone out there, uploaded the file. We can, and you can give a system prompt, and then you can share the model with anyone you want. So right now, for example, once I have created it, I have an assistant here called UC Bearcat AI, and I can go and ask it a question. What are the requirements? What are math proficiency? Thankfully, I don't have to have spelling completely correct for nursing. So in this particular case, as you can see, is using Claude Sonnet. And if I were to, and you can see that it got, these are the documents which are uploaded. So it's getting it from these documents. So you can, for example, you can try to do the same query, let's say from Gemini. You can see the answer is a little bit different, but hopefully equally as accurate. So this is where you can build an assistant. Now let's go. I didn't show you how to build it because let me just go ahead with the process of building it. So I'm going to create I have a document sitting there, which is a business school case study on Amazon. So I'm going to create an assistant. Let me upload a file here. Amazon. And then I'll go ahead and build it. This will take, it should take about 20-30 seconds. And while it's doing that, while it's indexing the file, here I can talk about some of the options here. For example, so you can set the system prompt. So you can say these are the prompts which are included with any prompt that the user sent. And you can specify GenAI API keys, basically saying, do you want to provide the key yourself? If you want it to use one of your keys, then you can set the budget and the model, or you can ask the user to bring their own key. And there's some advanced setting which says assistant published or not, whether you want the sources to be restricted, meaning that the assistant to only use the data from the document, or if it doesn't find it, then it can go out. So let's just go ahead and say assistant restrict is off, and I'm going to save it. Now I should have this assistant Amazon case study. So I'm going to say, let's say, what was unique about Amazon's strategy. And this should again only refer to the case study and give you a response with hopefully a reference to the document. So and once you're done with the assistant, you can go ahead and, as I was saying earlier on, you can actually share it. You can share it with the user, or you can give them authoring permission, or you can share it with the entire organization. You can share it with the course. And if you share it with the course, then I'll show you later on how it will show up for the user. So that's our the campus. This is once again can be used for deploying things like campus assistants, and also just giving a playground. So let me go back to my slide now, and I think I covered all that. So let's talk about the classroom product. So the classroom, essentially, we take our product and we have two classes of product. One, which we are not going to talk more about it, but this is our cloud sandboxes, fairly popular. More than half of our learners use it to get us basically a sandbox, which is today we support AWS, Azure, GCP, and Databricks. So when we say sandbox, it means an access to the resources, but completely constrained by budget, by different policies. And essentially, a lot of energy goes in to make sure that by default, you don't get hit with a large charge because someone forgot to leave a machine running, or maybe there's intentional abuse happens. And or maybe you want to give access to an application, let's say an EMR studio or a SageMaker studio directly, so you can actually launch the resources and give learners access to these resources which are provided by the cloud vendor. And the other one is AI Notebook, which is what the focus, which I'm going to be focusing on from now onwards. This is Vocareum's sort of unified interface for getting access to all AI related resource, especially in the learning environment. So what is AI Notebook? So first of all, if you're familiar with Jupyter Notebook, it is it's an extension of that. You can bring in your Jupyter Notebook, but one of the reasons why Jupyter Notebook became so popular, because you could do quick, easy compute as a part of your text without needing to go to a terminal or knowing Unix and things like that, right? So we have taken this and actually added a couple of more cells. One is a prompt cell, and also we have added the quiz cell, and we'll show that. And then you can deliver more resources like AI Assistant and tutors. You can deliver GenAI for if someone is using it to run code, then you can deliver to run API keys and GPUs. And once again, since it is focused for learning, there are built-in facility to provide feedbacks and grades. And there's a forum to have a conversation around the AI response. I realize that I'm running a little out of time, so I will just skip that because hopefully the demo will be clear. So as I was saying earlier on, what we are showing in the screenshot here is how you can deliver resources. I think I already showed delivering GenAI resources, but you can deliver GPU resources, or you can deliver a custom CPU cluster. So what happens is that by default, the compute that we provide is a 4 vCPU, 16 gig. But you can, if your environment needs compute and you need more powerful compute, you can provide that, or you can provide GPU. And for GPU itself, it's becoming obviously a really big deal these days if you're running some training and inference jobs. So we will focus a lot on optimizing the GPU consumption. There are some classroom features like auto grading, team projects, peer reviews, AI feedback, and so let's just go ahead and actually show it. So in this particular case, what I was going to do a demo through our Canvas interface. So it does not, as I was mentioning earlier on, that we integrate with all the LMSs. But right now, I'm logged in as a learner. and I come in and I can see all these assignments. So let's just go ahead and first of all, a basic sandbox. In this particular case, all that the learner is being delivered is GenAI Sandbox, as I was mentioning earlier on. This GenAI Sandbox, you can deliver not only multiple models. So this particular key, which I was mentioning earlier on, it supports all these different models. So you can pick a model and you can just interact with it. And then also, if you wanted, you could deliver your own, let's say, a student assistant model, and that will show up here. And if you notice here, there's a $30 budget assigned to the sandbox. So the learner can basically, and on every key, every call, we will go ahead and actually give you live feedback on the budget. Even though I did make a call, it did not consume anything because only to fourth decimal place. So this is sort of the fast environment where you're just delivering a GenAI sandbox. So let's go to the next one, where you're delivering, let's say, an API key. And in this particular case, we are delivering API keys when you actually want the learners to write some code. And this particular case, there's a $3. And if you notice, it says the base URL is openai.vocareum.com. And there's an API key, which we create a custom key for this environment. And then, so at this point, we will run this. So let's see if I can move it. It's actually installing some packages. Just want to make sure that, okay, that's done here. Okay, so let's go ahead and put up there. And then at this point, now we're making an API call. So if I make the call here, so that should show tiny bit of consumption. As you can see, the budget was with digital assistant. Now, if someone does not know if you want to present this environment, this is a prompt cell. You can do the same thing without writing code. And you can do it in the context of an assignment so they can be submitted, and hopefully we'll show that later on. So this is the next use case. Let me go ahead and log in as a teacher so I can show you how the configuration is done. For this next one. So this use case is one of our partners who is in the financial certification service business. They wanted to provide an environment where the learner can get a quick feedback. And it was not meant to be graded, but so the way you configure it through our Vocareum AI notebook is that we create here is write a 5-sentence summary of the stock price of Amazon over the year. So this is kind of assignment. And we went out there, created a cell, and now we are giving the answer, so you don't have to see me type here. And then we are saying, okay, we want you provide a feedback, and we want feedback to have this rubric, factually correct and is complete. And of course, you can do anything. And when the feedback comes in, actually, it knows what the question is by looking at the cell before it. That's how, and then that's how the feedback will come. And here now we have a coding similar. A coding cell. Our customer wanted also, the students to on their own go learn some Python, and once again the rubric is, we have added some rubric like correctness, completeness, algorithm, and once again because the question in the cell before that, that's how it knows it. So once you do that, let's go ahead and see what it looks as a student. So I'm going to Canvas student view. And you can see the answers already here. So I'm going to just go ahead and ask the AI for the feedback. So here is giving a feedback saying answer is accurate. And so let me just go ahead and change something. So instead of 1997, I'll say 1998, which is wrong when Amazon went public. And if the AI is working correctly, it should give you a feedback saying, the stock prices is saying that, yeah, it's, this was 1997, not 1998. And you can get further explanation. I'll come back to this tutor functionality a little bit later on. And there is a similar, this is a code. Let me go ahead and actually say print factorial 4. So this will just run it, and this thing's 24. So let's go ahead and ask AI for feedback. This is actually pretty remarkable. For those of you who are used to writing autogrades, actually, I was really surprised to see, at least for really trivial cases, how good the AI is for saying things like, okay, you want me to use recursion, let me make sure that it's really using recursion, and let me go ahead and say, I'll just make a mistake here. I'll say, -1 or something. And then it will actually go back and say, oh, I might have started an infinite loop there because I didn't mean to run it. But infinite loop, then eventually it'll get killed based on but maybe I didn't. Okay, so it should say the correctness because of n-1. So you can see that it can read the code and provide feedback. So I think we're finding just really incredibly useful to give feedback, especially in things like code. So that's the next use case. And then just want to show a very classic Jupyter grading NB grader just for the sake of completeness. So here is maybe I'll just, since I'm running out of time here, let me just go ahead and go straight to the student view. And anyway, this one is actually a recursion student view, and I'm going to go ahead and submit it. And this one will send the grade using NB grader, and you can say grade is 2 by 2, and you got this one wrong, the other one right, and then we'll send the grades over to AI, to LMS. And there are these functionalities like forum, and if you notice here, there is a co-pilot functionality, which where you can actually you can program. So instead of the learner just getting a feedback, maybe they can get help with actually writing the code. But of course, you don't want to give them the answer. So you can configure the co-pilot to say, okay, go step by step. Get help functionality. Once again, it will launch a tutor. But I'll show the tutor and functionality a little bit in next example. So I'll skip that here. And let me come back to my slide here. Did I, what happened to my slides? Okay, here is the slide. So then I just want to talk about the last thing, which is our assessment generator, Tutor, and Forum. So Tutor, once again, can be completely customized so that provide as much or as little help you want. You can even say, you can have different responses based on if the student has implemented the problem or before. And of course, as you know, the AI can sometimes hallucinate. So one of the things which one of our teachers suggested is that they wanted this concept of a forum. So students in a group, they can have a conversation around AI and basically use as a critical thinking moment. So we are pretty excited about this functionality. We are calling it, this shows up in thread, we're calling it forum. And once again, you can completely customize the prompt. You can, and you can do response caching once again to reduce hallucination, basically for the same subject. As you approve a response, we'll keep storing it. So first we will look for a response to see if you have something semantically stored in our database, then we'll provide that. But so far, it has been pretty exciting to see how useful it has been in all the cases that has been deployed. Then the last thing we want to talk about is AI-generated assessment. So you can, and maybe what I will do here is actually just show you, in the context of a developmental math class. So this was, we were collaborating with one of our partners where they wanted to give the student extra time if they're coming from, say, community college in the 4 year, they have to take a placement test. then give them some opportunity to actually prepare for it. And so we created this this flow. So where, go ahead here. So what you will notice here is, I didn't mean to do it as a student view. So I'm seeing the student version of this. But anyway, so I'll show the student one and go back to authoring. So here is something like, the student sees it. It's presented adaptively. It says simplify the expression 3x plus 5 minus 2x 7. I say 2x, I give a wrong answer here. Then you can submit it. And it says this incorrect. And the student can again get help. Now this get help is essentially sending to the LLM what we call a student model. So not only it's sending a context, the question, but all that the student has answered correctly or not, right? So, and as I was saying earlier on, the student can create a thread, which is basically they can have a conversation with their team member or entire class or just with the teacher around what they think about the response. So it's saying, okay, here was the question, here was the response. You can post a comment either anonymously or not. And so this is, as you can see, and this one today we are, you can do labs, but also you can do multiple choice and you can do open-ended answers. And open-ended answers is actually where the LLM does really, really well. So let's go back and talk about authoring interface. So I will get out as a student. So this is once again, the authoring interface. Everything is built on top of our Vocareum notebook. Sometimes might not be obvious. So this one is actually the LLM. We have used the LLM to generate what we call a concept, domain models. It basically says, here are the questions and here the dependency between the question. And of course, the LLM can hallucinate. So you can go ahead, you have an opportunity to say, let me fix it, maybe delete some concept, maybe add different dependencies. And let me go ahead and see what questions are there. In this case, as you notice, there are no questions for this solving linear equation. So you can go out there and you can generate questions. And you can, let me set the domain, algebra 1, solving linear equation. And I will just leave the prompts alone. And let me say, I'll say, give me 2 multiple choice questions. And again, the trick here is that it can, you can generate a large number of questions. And there's a flow to go ahead and validate it just in case hallucination and getting wrong. So, here's and I'm not going to go through it, but if you get it wrong, then you can fix it. And we are spending a lot of energy by having multiple agents and just trying to make it super efficient. First of all, not have the LLM make mistakes, but maybe using one LLM to check the other one's work, and also make it really efficient to go through this. And then you can review it. You can review responses, then you can accept it. Now you have gone out there, added 2 more questions. So and now this will be presented adaptively using the concept graph. So in this particular case, as you notice, the domain was here. Let me go ahead and show how you'll create a domain. So I will create another, let me go to this, another assignment. Let's say if I did not have a domain created, I'm starting from scratch, then you have 2 options. Either you can upload a data in this data file, or you can just go ahead and ask the LLM to say, I'm going to give you a description, generative AI for English major. And I will say, do not generate more than, because sometimes if you don't do that, it will just take a while, more than 15 concepts. So we'll go ahead and, I forgot to enter a name. We'll say GenAI. So hopefully you'll come back in less than a minute. Otherwise, you just have to take my word that the domain which I was showing you earlier on. So the other, the quiz configuration is where you can go out there and sort of configure things like how do you want to, do you want to customize the prompt? Do you want to show the hints before, after, all sorts of, and there's a mastery learning built in, so you can define mastery. Maybe the learner has answered this percentage of question for a concept or these many questions in a row. Okay, there you go. So there is the domain. It says you should do. I'm actually surprised by the answer because clearly for an English major, this is too complicated. But anyway, text generation. So you can obviously change the model and maybe you can go back and say, okay, simplify. You can actually iterate through your prompt to get what you want. And then at some point you can finalize it and then you can generate questions using the flow that I was showing earlier on.